Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Well, for Manchester United fans, I know that it wasn't particularly, a great weekend, especially given how, that encounter between Manchester United and Fulham ended. But of course, for Arsenal fans, for Chelsea fans all over the world, I know you guys enjoyed your weekend. I mean, it's one weekend you continue to talk about. I have a lot to say, really. I have really a lot to say about Manchester United's performance against Fulham. It was below expectation, way below expectation. Like, I was now wondering, are these the same players that played against Arsenal? Come on. Arsenal is a better team, of course, compared to Fulham. But I was now wondering, what really happened? Is it a question of tactics? Where are these players really getting it all wrong? And then, to be honest, I'm now being forced to assume that Manchester United is not really prepared for this new EPL season, and I just keep wondering if at all they go finish for top four. I mean, I just keep having doubts, and then I don't know, is it really the fault of the players, or is it the fault of the coach? Does it really mean that he's not the man for the job? And I'm referring to Ruben Amorim, of course. So I just have a lot to talk about. But I think a better way to begin is by saying that there was no one single player. Okay, maybe apart from the goalkeeper, who really impressed in that match. And of course, he had like the best. What is it called now? The best pass. So he created the highest chances. You can imagine that you day club and then it's your goalkeeper that is creating the highest chances. It's really laughable, really. So I don't know. I mean, if you watched Chelsea, if you watched Tottenham against Man City, and then of course if you watched Arsenal, against Leeds, you can really tell that okay, these are clubs that have come better prepared. You understand? Arsenal even signing Eberici is also makes it all the more interesting. Those guys are mad. Like for bench, you just be like saying, this season go hot, shall last. You understand? Okay, so just imagine Tottenham against Man City. Like they never gave Man City any breathing space at all. You understand? Watch that. I think it was the second goal. Yeah, so I don't know, the goalkeeper was trying to play from the back. So you see, say these guys, they press you. Instead of you to just shoot the ball away, you're still trying to pass from the back. Come on, and then he made that, I think it was the first or the second goal. He made that very costly mistake. Yeah, but then it tells you that, of course, Tottenham are better prepared. This is more than they were last season, and then it shows, what you can really expect from the club. Talking about, like, they never really gave Man City any breathing space at all. Like from the very first minute to the last minute, I watched it, and like those guys no agree. Like defense, the goalkeeper, midfield, the attackers, all of them were pretty wonderful. Then Chelsea, another interesting team. Don't be like say all these teams even pack players past Manchester United, But then I keep wondering what the problem really is. Yeah, Chelsea, of course, when the game started against West Ham, it ended 5-1, in favor of Chelsea. But then when the game started, first 5 to 10 minutes, it just be like say West Ham don't recover from their humiliating loss against Sunderland. Of course, that game ended 3-0. In favor of Sunderland, who just came back from relegation. Yeah, so of course when they got onto the pitch, 5-10 minutes or more, they don't score Chelsea one, and I was like, what's really happening? These guys are serious. And of course they kept like hold of the ball. They were in possession, for some time, and then before Chelsea just started pouring the thing like, now wow. And then you can't reach Sunday way. I expect say at all 2-0 Manchester United against Fulham. Of course, given how Manchester played against Arsenal, I mean that's one game that really got Manchester United supporters, off their seats. Like even Arsenal fans were afraid They were leading, but then they were still afraid. They were complaining. I remember many of them were complaining, and then Manchester United fans were, really excited because even though Arsenal won that game, like it gave fans a bit of hope that okay, finally, the club was, getting back to where it originally should be, and that the culture, we're trying to revive the culture and all of that. That was what I was expecting against Fulham, to be honest. But then when the game started, now from first minutes to last, almost, I say, what's really happening? Like the midfield was so porous. Like I don't really know what happened in that game. Like no, but the fact is that Manchester United really needs midfield reinforcement. Casemiro is tired, of course, we don't expect him to be as strong and as agile as he was in his days at Real Madrid. Fernandez wasn't his best in that match, and of course, we all recall that he lost the penalty. Like Fernandez, of all players, of course, it's normal to miss penalties, but that one was it was crazy. Like the way he shot it, as if na quarry. You understand? Really, there's no explanation, no justification for him missing that penalty, because there were some reports that had it that okay, it was because of that collision that he had with the referee just before he played the penalty that made him lose it. But I don't think that's like enough justification. If you have lost, what is it called now? If you have lost interest, or if you have lost interest and then you feel like okay, you can no longer take this penalty for any reason, the best thing is for you to, of course, we're not looking for, Manchester United is not looking for players that can take penalties. So you have Brian Mboimo. Of course, he was one of the finest penalty takers in his days in Brentford. Of course, he used to be Ivan Toney before he now left the club, and then Brian had the responsibility of taking penalties, and then we know how good he was at the club. You understand? And of course, Matthias Cunha also is a very good penalty taker. So I'm wondering, okay, why didn't you let these other guys take the penalty if at all you had already lost confidence? You don't take that kind of chances for granted. I mean, I know how the club in that particular match really struggled, and then they got that penalty, thankfully, where we say we were supposed to utilize, and then he just shot it into the air. It was it was crazy. Like it was really annoying, to be honest. It was, and I know he would really feel bitter, because of course, even when they got that very controversial goal that came off Euro's head, and then Fulham defenders back, and then he got into the goal. Even when they got that goal, of course, Fulham, came back and then got an equalizer. I mean, Fulham got a better goal. So imagine that usually there was like, okay, there was a VAR review. So imagine that goal was cancelled for any reason. So it means that Manchester United would have lost that match. It doesn't really make sense. Like, I'm just hoping, I don't know. Like I said before, I'm wondering if it's the fact that okay, the coach lacks some tactics, because if you watch some of the changes he made, they didn't really make sense to me. I mean, you remove what's his name now, Mason Mount, and then so some of those changes he made, they were not really making sense. I mean, I feel like he should have even removed Fernandez, because clearly he had lost concentration in that match. It wasn't his match, you understand? And then Fulham players apparently, overpowered Manchester United, and that's like the kind of game I would have expected him to bring in a player like Kobe Maino. I mean, I keep wondering why Amorim doesn't want to, give Kobe Maino a chance to really prove himself. I mean, he is not the best, that there is, but the fact is that that guy has a lot. He's, regardless of his age, he's a very experienced midfielder. I don't know. And now there are reports that are suggesting that he's open to leaving the club on a loan. I don't think it would be a good idea, because personally, I feel like he's a much better player currently in that midfield compared to Ugarte. I mean, Ugarte keeps making slight mistakes, and then you keep wondering what's really happening. So the fact is that in that midfield, Manchester United has a very big problem. And then I think that something else that is causing a whole lot of problem in the club is that the coach is not really allowing these players to be themselves. So we've seen a number of times where he's had to shuffle. Brian that is supposed to be playing from the flanks. He brings him into the midfield. He keeps switching positions. I don't think that really makes sense. Most of the times, if you want to get the best out of players, I think it's best let them be their natural selves. These guys already have a position where they've been trained, to play in. I'm not saying it's okay, of course, as a player, it's okay to be a utility individual, but then most of the times it's always okay also to let players be themselves, be their natural selves. All right. So like I said, I don't think it would make sense for Manchester United to let Kobe Maino go. Either it's on loan or it's permanent deal. No, I don't think it would make sense. I think that would be the club shooting themselves in the leg. And of course, there are stories already questioning the ability of the coach to really deliver, because to be honest, Manchester United has really spent a fortune. Of course, we know how they had to completely restructure the training facility. They had to bring up all of those trophies and then they put them on display so that this new crop of players would really sort of understand that Manchester United there is a culture of winning. You understand? So all of those things were supposed to sort of ginger these players, but I don't think that what we are seeing is what we really expect. Imagine spending over 200 million dollars and then you're not getting results as well. This is one thing that we suffered from. The club suffered from rather last season. Imagine playing over more than 20, over 25 matches and then not even scoring up to 10. It's really shameful, particularly for a club as big as Manchester United. I just hope that the coach would get the players to really do better. And something else I really want to talk about is the fact that I don't know why the club would spend over 60 million pounds on a striker, and then you don't want to get him into the ball right from the very first minute. I don't think that makes sense. Of course, this is my personal opinion. I feel like, come on, if you have spent that kind of fortune to get a player into the club, you get him right into the match. There's no why are you keeping him on the bench? It can be demoralizing, to be honest with you. And I could tell that, okay, when he came in, he already lost the zeal already. Give players the opportunity. I mean, that's one thing that Chelsea and Arsenal did, that I really liked. And I feel like that is also contributing to the success that Gyökeres is already recording in the club, because very well he is already blending with other players beyond the training ground now. You understand? So they are having to play more matches together, and then they're looking at how competitive it is, and then of course he's having to blend well into the team. So I feel like Amorim should really give Shesko the opportunity, get him right into the game, and then watch him do his magic. I just hope that he would do that, because that would go a long way in really uplifting the club. It's not too late. It's not too late, but I feel like if this continues, then I'm afraid I don't think Manchester United can finish in the top four like we expect. From a club that has spent that kind of money. I just hope that other matches would be better. Really, the club really needs to start winning. Come on, clubs are already scoring 5 to 8 goals in just 2 matches, and then Manchester United is here struggling with a single goal. Currently, they are sitting in around 16th position or so, with just a point. No. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't speak well of a club as big and as reputable as Manchester United. But well, kudos to Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham. Man City is another club that is really struggling, because I don't know what they were thinking in that match. Their coach was very, very disappointed. With it was as though the players had already lost interest completely. But let's see what happens, especially as the transfer window, we're just left with a few days before it finally ends. Let's see if Manchester United can get a midfielder, a very strong one. I mean, the discussion over the months, has been around Baleba, but clearly Brighton doesn't want to let him go. I mean, they put the price tag around 115 to 120, million dollars. Well, let's see how it goes. If the club can go all out to get him, that would be fine. I mean, he's pretty young. He's a guy for the future. And then another very important department, even though it looks like the goalkeeper. No, I'm not talking about Onana now. He was on the bench. Bayern is beginning to improve. That's the second choice goalkeeper. But I feel like the club really needs another goalkeeper. You understand? Because it appears Onana would have to go, because I think that the coach has clearly told him that he's not part of the plan. So Manchester United basically need a goalkeeper and a midfielder, and then most importantly, most times I feel like these defenders, they just lose themselves. They oftentimes they just lack concentration. So imagine Dallo. Of course, he was the one that caused the goal. Just few minutes after he was brought into the game, I don't know. He's one player that I don't know. He often gets confused. He lacks coordination. I don't know what's happening. I just hope that he would get a very strong competition so that he can maybe sit up. I remember that he was on loan severally before he finally came to the club. So I was expecting him to up his game. And then Luke Shaw, I don't know what happened in that match. Come on, Luke Shaw, we expect better. This is not the Luke Shaw that we used to know. Like, generally, all the players, like I said, apart from the goalkeeper, were below expectation. But all hope is not lost. So far 2 matches have been played, so there are about 36 matches left. But I feel like most of the times how the season is going to end right from the beginning. And of course, clubs that are better prepared are already putting in the work, and they are scoring goals, they are winning matches. And I think that's what really makes sense. So you can as usual, drop your comments. What do you feel was wrong in that match between Manchester United and Fulham? What are the areas where you feel like, okay, the coach needs to do better? What are the players that you feel like, this guy shouldn't be part of this project anymore? Like, just share your thoughts on what you feel like the club needs to do better to begin to win. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Bye for now.